Okay, right now it should be better. So I know you're already tired, but who of you loves some rock and roll, metal, grunge, whatever? Come on. Okay, let's try to make some noise here. Okay, so this talk, I will show you how to set your amp and process music live your instrument with JavaScript. So before we start, a few words about myself. My name is Vitalii. I came from Poland, and here I'm working as a lead software engineer at a company called EPAM Systems. I also co-organize in Angular Wrocław meetups, and disclaimer, I'm not a professional guitar player, so don't judge me. It's just a hobby, and I used to play at punk rock groups when I was a teenager. You can find me on Twitter, and you can read my blog. Actually, here I started to blog posting some information regarding these topics that I will show today. Okay, so web audio, yeah? It exists for a while in web standards. Most of browsers had a good support of it. So what is it? Actually, it provides us with a context with which you can create a unidirected graph with audio nodes. Those audio nodes could be get together to create some effects, generate some music, or process live stream. How it looks like? We have some input. In my case, it's guitar. It might be generated sound with oscillators. And we have an output, our speakers, headphones, whatever. And between that, we have some nodes. Connected these nodes, we can achieve some effects and audio processing. If you take a look at real guitar stack, we have a guitar, we have some amplifiers, cabinets, and between them, we have some stomp boxes with some effects like chorus, distortion, and so on. So how we can actually connect instrument? This could be applied to any instrument, actually, that could be connected to an audio card. But in my case, it's guitar. Okay, first of all, we need to create audio context. Audio context is the main object that allows you to create new nodes, connect them, and put it to some destination. So we create this context. After that, we request some stream. And we will use navigator, media devices, and we are requesting audio in my case. You can also request video, but I don't need it. That is why I don't show it. And actually, you can catch errors if you don't grant permissions to audio or something went wrong, so it's optional. That's fine, but hey, wait, I got some audio constraints for you. What I mean by that? So that's completely fine. You can request audio using just get media audio true, but by default, most of browsers apply some post-processing for input stream. It's completely fine for microphone, for chatting application like Hangouts, Skype, but for web audio, they will reduce amount of our signal, which we want to use. So instead of passing just through, we need to pass some constraints to remove echo cancellation, after gain control, noise suspension, and provide some latency hint. Doing that, we get the most clean sound as we can from our instrument. After that, we get some stream, we have a context, and we need to connect this stream to destination. Context destination is a default output selected in your system. For example, now it should output to the speakers. One more thing, usually we need to control the amount of volume to not hurry our neighbors, for example, at night. So how to do this? We can imagine the audio signal as sine wave, yeah? And the amplitude of this sine wave is actually the amount of volume for the sound. So multiplying it or dividing by some numbers will reduce the amplitude. And reducing the amplitude will reduce the amount of volume. How it looks like in code. So web audio provides us with gain node. We create a gain node, and then we can apply a gain value. The value of 0 means that our sound completely muted. The value of 1 means that the sound not changed. The volume is as it is. So by putting the values between 0 and 1, we can control the amount of volume. Or even more, we can add some values more than 1 and amplify our sound. So when we create such a node, we need to connect our graph. So we have source, we connect it to gain node, and after that, connect to destination. So let me show how it looks like in real life. Okay. So I connected clean sound. So it's nice and what. And I have this master volume control. So now it's a value of 1, and I can reduce it to make it. Or even mute it. Completely no sound, and come back to 1. Okay, let me switch to slides again. Okay. So the first effect I want to show how to create with the Bobrov audio is distortion. Distortion often used in some rock music, metal, and so on. So actually it's a group of effects that change our input sine wave with some transfer function, and this process called wave shaping. So bit of history about this effect. Back in these times, the equipment for guitarists wasn't that good, sorry. And when it was broken, for example, speaker was cut off, the sound became distorted. But guitar players liked this effect so much, so they started to destroy the speakers themselves. That's how it was born. Only after a few years, the first semiconductor effect in form of pedal was done by different producers. But now you don't need that. You can use just web audio. Okay, as I said before, distortion is a group of effects. It contains of overdrive, distortion, and fuzz. So what is the difference between them? Again, we can imagine our sound wave as a sine wave, and we apply wave shaping function to our wave, and it becomes more square. Doing that, we generating harmonics. What is harmonic? Our sound of some instrument, for example, it doesn't have only one frequency. It has one domain frequency and a bunch of harmonics, other frequencies with possibly lower amplitude. And doing wave shaping, we increase amount of harmonics. So our original wave become more richer and harder. So the difference between overdrive, distortion, and fuzz. If we will see on sound wave after we apply transfer function of different types, for overdrive, it will be more curved. For distortion, slightly more square. And for fuzz, it will be almost completely square. So with such changes in a wave shape, we reducing or increasing amount of harmonics we add to original sound. And more harmonics we add to it, more effect, more harder sound we achieve. How it looks like with web audio. So we have an awesome web shaper node provided by web audio. Why it's awesome? You just provided a lookup table with values calculated beforehand for harmonics with your transfer function, and web audio applies it using fast Fourier transforms to your source input. So most of hard work are hidden and done for you by web audio API. So we creating some wave lookup table and assign it as a curve for wave shaper node. So how looks this function could be? So we have some amount of gain we want to add, we have number of samples for a lookup table, and we fill it with our transfer function. So basically we apply a floating 32 array to a curve. And that's it. After that, usually those effects, distortions, they have at least one control for tone. And again, hard work done for you. You have big watt filter node. It's a basic node for creating different types of filters. So we're creating a low-pass filter. Low-pass filter accepts some frequency. And everything below that frequency will be passed through. Everything that higher than this frequency will be cut off. So moving this frequency, we're reducing or increasing the amount of high frequencies, mid frequencies, and low frequencies. And the interesting thing that real stomp boxes also, at least some of them, using such kind of low-pass filtering, but made with some reduced capacitors and resistors. So basically, we're doing the same, but in a code, in a different way. So let's try to see what is the difference between overdrives, distortions, and so first I have some overdrive enabled, yeah. Could we make it louder slightly? So here I apply the most soft transfer function I can. So it's just not that big difference between clean sound and distorted. We adding not that much harmonics, but let's try another one with more harder function. So our sound is more harder. And when I change in the amount of effect, I statically generate lookup table. So we can use more amount. I just recalculating this lookup table after I get new value for gain. And here we have tone control, yeah? All way up, we have all frequencies, no of our guitar frequencies reduced. It sounds slightly harsh. And if we reduce the amount of frequencies, it will be some mudded sound. So again, with just one filter, we're changing our sound in a different ways. Those was overdrives. Now let's try some distortion. So our sound become more harder, more heavier, and that's the basically difference between overdrive and distortion. Let's try another one. Okay, and the last one, fuzz. It's more heavier and more like digital because our sound shape become almost square. And again, we have tone control, but in this case, it's slightly different tone control variant. We can make it almost okay. That was some distortions. Okay, but to make our sound more closer to real devices, we would like to create some cabinet or amplifier simulation. And we can do it using special thing called impulse response. What is impulse response? It's a short sample containing just few milliseconds of a sound of a real device, I mean speaker of guitar cabinet. So if you think about, you can think about it like a photo. Photo is a snapshot of light at some point of time. Impulse response is the same, but applies for the sound. So it's a snapshot of some sound in some space at some point of time. So, and again, web audio saves us and hide a lot of complicated work behind the scenes. We can use convolver node. We create this convolver node, then we load this impulse response file. We create array buffer for it, then we decode it and apply this buffer to our convolver node. So all sounds that will go through this convolver node will go through this impulse response. So it will be adjusted accordingly to our sample. And next thing, usually amplifiers has at least 3-band equalization. So to have more control over our tone stack on guitar cabinet, we want to create some 3-band equalizer. So basically, we need to split our frequency range into 3 bands. For everything below 500 Hz, it will be for bass control. Everything above 300 Hz will go for treble control. Everything in the middle will be middle. How it looks like in code. Again, we're using big watt filter node, but now we're using another types of them. For our bass node, we're using low shelf filter. Low shelf filter takes a frequency, and everything below that frequency will be attenuated or amplified depending on the gain value we did for it. So we can adjust the amount of those frequencies. The opposite thing we do for high frequencies with high shelf filter. So it takes a frequency, and everything above that frequency will be attenuated or amplified. For middle range, we're using peak-in filter. So it takes the middle frequency of our range, and everything inside this range will be amplified or attenuated. Okay, let's try it out and try to see the difference between different cabinets. Okay. Let's start with clean. So here I'm just turn off any cabinet emulation. It's just clean sound of a guitar. Now I apply response from real cabinet. Then I can switch to another one, for example, this one. And it sounds differently. So those samples made from real devices, or this darker sound. Maybe it won't be that noticeable without any effect, so let's enable some effect. So now we have really, really dark Come As You Are. Let's try something more lighter. Let's try more lighter one. And let's try our 3-band equalizer. So let me reduce the amount of middle tones. Damn it, sound. Or if you increase it, it will be more bright. We can increase the amount of bass, for example, but won't be. And trebles. Okay, let's switch back to the slides. And the last thing I want to show is a reverberation. What is a reverberation? It's the effect that tries to simulate some spaces. For example, now we are in hall, yeah? And this space has its own acoustic properties. So with reverberation, we can emulate such spaces like halls, football court, for example, or something else. This effect would be slightly more complicated. So basically, we want to split our source sound into 2 lines. The wet one with effect and dry one without effect. It's just clean sound. So for wet tone, we will create some delay node. Actually, when you're speaking in some hall, the sound goes to the back wall and comes to you back with some delay. That creates for us meaning of the space inside some rooms. After that, we will filter it slightly and again apply convolver node. But now we will use the impulse responses from different places. Usually this sample is just some clap, few milliseconds of a clap in different space, and applying convolution on it, we will get the simulation of the space. Then we will merge back wet and dry tones, and reducing the gain on wet and dry, we will control the amount of effect we want to apply to the source. So how it looks like. First of all, we create splitter node to split our sound into 2 channels. Then we add delay node, tone node with big watt filter, convolver node, and gain control to control amount of effect sound. And dry node to control the amount of clean sound. And we create merger to merge it back. After that, we need to connect them, so splitter connect to delay, delay to tone, tone to convolver, convolver to wet, and back to merger. And on the second line, we connect dry and back to merger. Okay, let's show how the reverberation changes the sound. Okay, let me try this preset, yeah? So, firstly, I will show how it sounds without reverberation, yeah? It's kind of solo. I'm not that good at solos, but anyway. Is it turned off? Why there is no sound? Is there any input? Okay. Oh. Now it's, yeah. Okay, let's try it. Okay, this was the variant without reverberation. Let's add the reverberation emulation of a spring reverb on an up. Okay. And another example. Here I will show, again, without reverberation and with, and I will simulate whole with reverberation. Okay, let's try. Okay, and now we will try reverberation. And we can adjust the amount of space we want to simulate with delay time. So let's try, for example, the 10 milliseconds. And we can reduce it back. Okay. And let's switch to slides back. So, short recap what we learned today. So, we learned what is web audio, how to connect your instrument to process it in real time with web audio, how to control amount of volume using gain node, how to create basic distortion effects using wave shaper and control tone of effect using big quad filter node, how to simulate real guitar cabinets and amplifiers using cover node, how to create reverberation effect using merger, splitter, and delay nodes. And that's basically what I have. Be a 10x engineers, but better to be a rockstar engineers using web audio. So try it out. All the code available on GitHub. The app is open source. I'm open to pull requests if you want to create a new effect or fix any issues, for example, mobile version. That's hard for me to create right now and all these controls. So check it out. Thank you very much for coming and enjoy your conference.